Deadpan Ghosts is a horror media podcast and as such may feature discussion of mature or disturbing subject matter. A full list of content warnings for this episode can be found in the description. Hi! Welcome to Deadpan Ghosts, a horror media podcast hosted by two real-life ghosts. Jonathan, that's me, and their tingling co-host, Vernon.
That's me.
And today we are talking about the 1988 classic ghost thriller slasher film, Child's Play. Vernon, what did you think of this movie?
Wow, thank you, Jonathan. Well, you call it a ghost thriller, but I, as a previously casual horror fan in my living life, would never have known that the famous horror icon Chucky was a ghost inhabiting a toy doll. I think that Chucky as a character has surpassed the brand. Even, it went from the whole series is no longer called Child's Play. They're all called Chucky.
That's right.
Or some variation of now.
For sure. Bride of Chucky, Seed of Chucky, all that.
Horrible.
Yeah. He's become front and center of the franchise pretty much. And
to where maybe the origin in the zeitgeist, I just don't feel like... I feel like Chucky is something that most people, if you're not into horror, you steer clear of. That you heard of it, everybody knows of it, but that most people want nothing to do with it. And so
Right.
it just feels like a lesser known fact, like the whole beginning of this movie and the whole explanation of how it works. Just feels like I never heard of this before. What a twist.
Yeah, for sure. But we have both seen this movie as younger ghosts, naturally. Isn't that right, Vernon?
That's true. I did see it one other time.
Yeah, I was really young when I saw it, so.
How, like the age of Andy?
Oh, well, not. That would be pretty young.
That's very young.
No, I was probably around 12,
That is still pretty young.
I mean, when I was a kid, my kind of introduction to the whole haunted doll genre of horror film, maybe that's what I should have led with, actually. But my introduction was probably Slappy from Goosebumps. I think his name's Slappy or something like that.
Whoa.
But they had their own kind of creepy haunted doll that was obviously just taken from Child's Play, and so it made me interested enough to kind of seek out the first few movies from the series, and I probably stopped there. So I'm pretty excited actually to dive into the Chucky movies. I feel like it's somewhat of a blind spot considering all of the later ones that I haven't seen. How do you think the first one has held up, considering that it kind of has this surprising origin for the character?
Well, how the origin held up is one thing, but as a movie, I think it's quite wonderful. And for all the fear that it holds for me in my, most of my life and a lot of my afterlife, I think the main spectacle that this movie is trying to deliver is seeing this toy come to life and chase you and be terrifyingly animate. Like, how is it moving so lifelike? And so
For sure.
all of those things are the most important things, and they hold up the best.
Yeah, honestly, pretty well, yeah. The movie takes its time, though, because it is the first one. We don't get to see a lot of Chucky moving around until later in the film.
That's true. I wrote down that it was exactly 45 minutes into the film.
Yeah, and that's pretty much halfway because it's a tight movie, honestly. It's like...
It is tight. I mean, you say that it takes a while to get going, but I think that it's all really... that it moves at a clip. It starts really fast. How does it start, Jonathan?
Well, okay. So, a guy immediately is being chased through the street by a cop. And the first thing we hear this cop say is, "I've got the strangler."
The Strangler.
So, this guy who he's chasing, Brad Dourif,
Brad Dourif.
sporting, long, kind of mangy hair, like we're used to seeing him. And
Used to. I'm only familiar with him mainly from The Lord of the Rings, the second one, as he played Grima Wormtongue.
right, well, he had some greasy long hair in that role, right?
For sure, for sure. I think he's looking pretty great in his one scene.
Yes,
And doing great. You know,
the whole movie.
taking the moment for like, this is the last time I'll ever be playing the live action or the person version of this
For
character.
sure. Well, Brad Dourif, he always comes with 110%. We may get another chance to talk about Brad Dourif in the future.
Oh yeah, when?
I want to take a chance at some point to hopefully talk about the X-Files episode that he's in, which features some ghosts, some ghostly
ghosts?
presences.
Oh, I'm pretty sold. You got
Yeah.
me. You had me at ghosts.
There's most X-Files episodes, they focus on aliens, but this one's a special treat for us and the ghost enthusiasts out there. But this movie is maybe the thing that Brad Dourif is most known for, at least in the horror community. Probably, I think most people would know him from Lord of the Rings.
But he's still playing this role. I mean, there's a Chucky TV series now.
Absolutely. I mean, he's like Robert Englund is Freddy, Brad Dourif is Chucky. They would never want to see him go, But he's getting chased by a cop at the beginning of this movie, and we know that he's a strangler, at the very least. But he's getting shot at, he's shooting back at the cop, and there's a getaway driver in a van that is supposed to pick Brad Dourif's character up, who we soon learn the name of. The detective, I think, shouts out, "Give it up, Ray," and so his last name is Ray. And he watches his friend pretty much leave him behind as soon as the other cops show up. The detective gets on his radio and he's like, "Follow that van." And so they've got a beat on the getaway driver, and the detective is going to chase the killer on foot, right?
Right. Big gun shootout into a toy store.
He runs into a toy store to try to get away, and he starts hiding amongst the aisles of toys. And most of the toys in this toy store are of a special doll that ties into a children's TV show called The Good Guys. And so these are Good Guys dolls.
It's interesting that you have that kind of questioning tone. The good guys? Because I also, this is another one of those facts that I just didn't know about Chucky.
Right.
That there it was
A Good
that it's not,
Guys.
they're not all called Chucky even. They all have individual names. He's called Chucky because that's,
That's correct.
This strangler's name is Charles.
We see a little bit later an advertisement for the dolls, and they're just Good Guys dolls, but it says that each of them has its own name and it will introduce itself. And so they have like 3 sentences that they're programmed to say, and one of these sentences is, "Hi, I'm blank, wanna play?" And so there's just one specific doll named Chucky, or I guess there could be other dolls named Chucky, but it would be confusing to wrap them into the narrative. So in any case, while running into this toy store, Ray gets shot, and he's stumbling around, and he realizes that he's dying.
Yeah, I wrote down in my mental ghost notes. He says, "Oh God, I'm dying."
Yes.
And then he starts muttering, "I gotta find somebody. I gotta find somebody."
I gotta find somebody, yes. And he screams out to the detective in one of his more animated moments, "You're gonna pay for this, you son of a bitch! I'm gonna get you and Eddie too!" And Eddie is the getaway car driver that left him there, right?
Yes.
And he says he's gonna do it no matter what. So he makes his declarations known right from the beginning. He's going after Eddie, and he's going after this detective.
It's an epic performance.
It really is.
Those bits are like he's bleeding, he's got blood on his hands, and
And
he's knocking it out of the park.
And while he's stumbling around the store, muttering that he's got to find somebody, he collapses into a tower of these dolls wrapped in their boxes, and he puts his hand on one and turns it over, probably to try to like help himself up maybe, but he sees the doll and realizes that maybe this will work, right? Because what he wants to find somebody for is to transfer his soul into a new vessel since his body is dying. He's seemingly found some kind of way to cheat death, and he starts chanting in what the subtitles describe as an ancient language. And clouds, dark clouds, appear over the toy store, and they look really 1980s, kind of drawn in almost.
They look perfect. Perfect, absolutely.
And like lightning and thunder are crashing, right? And so he's putting his hand on the doll, he's taking it out of the box, and he's putting his hand on the doll's head, and he's chanting really loudly in this old language. The detective is like clearly scared out of his wits, looking around for him. He gets done with the chant, and lightning strikes into the toy store through the glass ceiling that the detective is looking up through. He gets a little bit exploded. The whole toy store gets exploded, but he's fine. A little bit
exploded. Just a teeny bit, like, tiny bit exploded.
Tiny bit, yeah, just blown off like a balcony. He gets up, though, and he's all right. He looks around and he finds Brad Dourif, the serial killer Ray, dead with the doll next to him, and seemingly case closed.
Right, seemingly.
But we know.
Obviously, it works.
Yes, he's in that doll.
But why would he think that would work?
I don't know if he
was like, I gotta find somebody. It's quite a leap to say, how about this toy?
He was just about to die. I think he took it as like a last shot. I don't know. Because later he brings up that he doubted it would work at all.
He must have been familiar with the good guy toy, all the articulation and the voice box capabilities.
I guess so, yeah.
He watches a lot of TV.
Maybe he was a fan. Yeah, he watches a lot of good guys at home. Just like the new character that we are introduced to.
Perfectly done, Jonathan.
Thank you. A young 6-year-old boy by the name of... I think he's supposed to be about 6 years old, 5 or 6.
Wow.
His name... What was his name?
His name's Andy.
Just like
Andy
in Toy
Barkley.
Story. Right, Barclay is his last name.
Just like in Toy Story.
Yeah, I had that thought while I was watching, and just obviously not intentional. They wouldn't want to link Toy Story to this, but I might have made a note if I was a producer at Pixar. I might have been like, avoid the kid from Child's Play, avoid that name.
Right.
And anyway, he's played by Alex Vincent. Immediately introduced as a good guys fan. Exactly the target audience that show is looking for. And
yeah, staring at the TV. I found that very relatable as a former child.
But he comes in and because he hears it's on TV, and it's this kind of cute show where the good guy kid comes down on like a hot air balloon and meets this other kid, and he's like, "Hi, I'm a good guy, and I'm your friend to the end. Heidi ho, ha ha ha." That's one of his canned recordings for the toy, right?
Yeah. He
watches a minute of that and immediately is like, "Oh, I've seen this one." And so he goes back to the kitchen and starts making a very messy breakfast.
Right. The sweetest... it's this kid's birthday. In the background, there's birthday decorations.
There's birthday decorations up. And so he's up making breakfast, and you're like, why is this kid making breakfast on his birthday? Well, for one thing, he pulls out... There's some more good guys stuff here. He's actually dressed a lot like the character of good guy.
For sure, the overalls and the red and blue.
Mm-hmm.
And there's merchandise all over, like the cereal. And,
the cereal is a good guy's cereal. Yeah, and it looks pretty good, too. Like, he pours some in a bowl, and I wonder what they actually used for that, because it kind of looks like a bomb-ass cereal, I'm not going to lie. But he takes the box, and he pours it just like a little kid was. 2 hands, just shaking it, and it's going all over the table. And then he grabs the milk, and he does the same thing with the milk. He's just splashing it all over this fucking bowl. He picks that up. He puts it on a tray. And while this is going on, he's making toast. And he turns around, and the toast is, like, smoking. It's been in the toaster for too long. And he pulls it out of the toaster, and it's completely black. And so he throws that on the tray. Oh, and he takes some butter, and he takes a big, thick like dollop of butter, and he just smacks that down on one of the blackened pieces of toasts. And he picks up this tray and he brings it to his mother, who's lying in bed, and he's like, "Mommy, mommy, wake up!" And she's like, "Oh my God, it's 6:30." And he opens the window, and he's like, "But it's such a beautiful day today, isn't it, Mom?" And she seems to remember, "Oh, it's the kid's birthday. I have to be in mom mode. I have to be happy now." So she smiles, and she's like, "Yes, it is. Happy birthday, honey." And he's like, "Mommy, I made you breakfast in bed." And she picks up that one of those black pieces of toast, right? The one with the butter on it. She's like, "Oh, this looks great, sweetheart." And the butter, like, falls off the toast onto the tray and goes, like, plop.
It was a big plop. This was, it felt like a comedy,
Yes.
you know, it very lighthearted, slapstickily staged, even though their performances I felt were super genuine.
Right.
You know, I love these two.
Yeah, they've got a lot of heart in this movie, and the kid is great. I think you're right, especially for as young as he is. The mother gets up and he asks, "Oh, can we open my presents already?" And she's like, "Of course." And so he goes into the living room, and he's got two presents. He's got a big present and a little present. And he wants to open the big one first because he thinks it's a good guy's doll. He's been eyeing it up and being like, "I bet there's a good guy's doll in that," because he just saw it advertised on TV and saw everything it could do. And he was like, "Wowee." He's already like salivating over this doll. Yeah, that's probably not exactly what he did, but basically the same kind.
Unfortunately, in the box is pants.
And some clothes. And this kid really gets how to portray, like, trying not to be rude, but clearly disappointed at his kind of age. And I guess whoever is responsible for coaching him, they must have done a really good job explaining to him everything he needed to get across in these scenes, because he does a really good job with it, I think.
Yeah, it gets into some pretty complex conflicts with, you know, him not being believed and understanding, you know,
Right.
what's going on. I think is handled really well. Super impressed.
Yeah.
I love this kid.
Belief and disbelief play a big part in this one, folks. So he is obviously disappointed, and she's like, "You want some toys, right? Not some boring old clothes. Try the little one." And he opens the little one, and it's a good guy's tool set. Still pretty good, but not what he wants now. He says, "I want a good guy's doll to go with it." And the mother is ready for this, actually. She goes,
Yeah.
"I know you do, honey, but I didn't know about it early enough to save up for it this month." Cut to...
Department store.
She is a department store worker. She works in jewelry.
And she's got a friend who works in shoes.
That's right.
Her friend named Maggie, who's, you know, fabulous. And
She is awesome. And she comes in and she's like, "Hey, you know that doll you were looking for your kid? There's a guy out back."
there's some guy behind the building.
Yeah, he's selling one. We could get a good discount on it. What do they call him? They call him a peddler. It's here in it's in the credits. He's credited as peddler, Juan Ramirez. And so Karen, I don't know if we've said the mother's name at this point, but it's Karen Barclay. And she and her friend go outside. They meet him. They haggle with him for a minute over this doll. It's a little bit roughed up. You can see the packaging is bent.
Since the explosion.
We obviously know where this doll came from because of dramatic irony. And so, so Maggie's haggling a little bit. She's like, "We don't even know if that thing works." And he's like, $50, take it or leave it. Karen gives it right up because she's like, "You don't understand how badly my kid wants this doll. He's obviously such a huge Good Guys fan."
Super into it. Dressing up as good guy.
So they get it, and then the peddler flashes his really bad teeth before he leaves, which will become slightly important later. Before they go back into the store, Maggie is like, "I think I dated that guy," which got a laugh out of me.
Yeah, that was a classic joke when I was young. My parents would say, like, "I think that's your mom's ex-boyfriend."
Yeah.
They go back in, and her boss is like, "You have to stay late." And so Maggie helps out, even though it's the kid's birthday.
Right, exactly.
So brutal, but she has to go pick him up and take him home.
But at least she is able to bring the doll home to him, and Maggie babysits him for a while he gets to play with his new toy. He shows her how it works, and it says, "Hi, I'm Chucky. I'm your friend to the end. Heidi-ho, ha ha ha."
Yeah, the kid is so excited. Oh, the mom
Yes.
gets to go home for a little bit to give the present, but then has to go back to work.
Oh, right. So she does give it to him, but then Maggie stays behind to babysit. So he's watching TV with the doll.
Working with his tools, his good guy tools.
Yes, and working with his good guy's tools. And while he's doing this, we get our first mischievous behavior from the Chucky doll.
Right, the turning of the head, which is extremely creepy.
And looking at the screen, yes, a lot of the I like it a lot better, to be honest, when the doll is still and silent and you're waiting for it to move, and then it moves a little bit. Obviously, near the end of this movie, he'll be moving a lot, and in the sequels as well. There is some charm to that too. I just like the tension building in the first half of this movie.
I agree.
It's done really well, I think. And he's looking at the news because the news is on, and they're like, "Coming up, we've got information about that serial killer that died in that toy store explosion." And and the other guy who the police tracked down associated with him got away with it. They let him out of court this morning, and of course that's one of the guys that Charles Lee Ray, the serial killer, wants to kill. And pretty soon the doll starts talking to the little kid, Andy.
Right, this was very like possession ghost movie vibes,
Exactly.
where the audience does not hear the voice of the doll. It's just whispers, and you are supposed to even doubt if the kid is. I mean, maybe you're not supposed to doubt because you know that he successfully put his soul into the toy.
Doubt for the other characters, right? But
dramatic irony.
And he says, because he's been sent to bed by Maggie, he says, "Maggie, Chucky wants to stay up and watch the 9 o'clock news," which is really funny.
Right. Yeah. That was really funny, and she's rolling her eyes like, "Where did you get? Who told? What do you say?"
Yeah, why do you want to watch the 9 o'clock news? Is what my question would be if I were her. Obviously,
yeah. And they she grabs Chucky by the arm and kind of wrangles him around and throws him on the bed, and I felt like there was tension building there
for sure
with mistreatment of him like you would a toy.
For sure,
he would take very personally.
Yes, for sure.
So she sends him to his room, and then they start doing the POV shots.
That's right.
Which are one of the hallmarks of this movie, I feel.
Yeah, it's got a lot of POV horror, much like the Friday the 13th movies, of course.
Except at another level, it's kind of super smooth. It's super well choreographed.
It's down near the ground, and it's actually very fast because Chucky is a fast little runner, right?
Yeah,
and they want to get
scary.
That across. Yeah, I like it. Your Jason Voorhees, other types of POV. Yeah, slow stalkers, but Chucky will peek around a corner.
Scuttling.
He'll scuttle, yeah. Which I think is really cool. You're right that the POV stuff is definitely one of the hallmarks of this movie. I like it a lot. He's doing this around Maggie, and she's looking over her shoulder oh my god, I heard something over there, but couldn't be. And she stands up and she's like, "Andy, was that you?" And she's not getting an answer because Andy's asleep. There's a part where Chucky's just sat his butt down on the chair, and he does catch a snippet of the 9 o'clock news and get some information that he needs.
Right, so Maggie is very confident that Andy must have done this. There's no other explanation. And she's kind of angry at him.
Exactly. Andy's already gotten in trouble because Chucky is getting up and doing things that a doll shouldn't do.
And Andy's so genuine, I didn't do that. I really believed him. He really didn't do it.
Exactly, and he didn't. But Chucky is, he starts sneaking around in the dead of night. He's put a chair up to try to mess with the door locks, and
There was a lot of putting chairs in front of doors.
Yeah, that's
three or four times.
that's true. Both for him and Andy, both Andy and Chucky need to do that to get up to see. So in a way, they are maybe foils, kind of. I don't know. That's a strange thought.
Yeah. Very astute.
But they're both resourceful and small, is the idea, I guess. But yeah, Chucky grabs not even a real murder object. Chucky grabs the hammer from the good guy's tool set. This tiny hammer for children to play with.
Chekhov's toy hammer.
Yeah, and he starts like hiding and sneaking around Maggie and kind of psyching her out, and knocks like a bowl of flour over, right? And Karen calls, says she's coming home.
Karen calls in a jump scare where the telephone rings.
Yeah, it's like right next to her, and the way she whips around so fast to pull this phone off the hook got a huge laugh out of me. I'm gonna be real.
It was tense.
She tells Karen that everything's okay and that she's okay, because Karen can kind of tell that she's a little bit off her game, right? She's like, I'm just having a bit of the, middle of the night goosebumps or something like that. And so not to worry, come home. Nothing will be wrong when you get here. And then she hangs up the phone.
And then Slappy from Goosebumps comes in.
Yeah, and he slaps Chucky a high five. And they both beat her up. No, but Chucky hits her with the hammer. And what happens after he hits her with this toy hammer is she flies backwards 15 feet. and then falls out of a big window and falls down like 10 stories onto a van.
Epic fall. Epic stunt,
It's on the poster for the movie. Her falling.
Really? Oh my gosh, spoiler.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, it's pretty epic. And it's definitely the beginning of Act 2.
Oh, for sure. Karen very soon comes home, and it's a funny shot where she's like, her view of her apartment is blocked by the bus that she just got off of. And she's like waving at people on the bus and smiling. And then it passes, and she sees that there's all these police and stuff around her apartment complex. And she immediately rushes through the barricades into the building. She runs around this old kind of service rope elevator that has
gorgeous building.
Stairs going up all around it on
cool.
Every side. She runs in, and they're like, "Whoa, what are you doing?" I live here. And
mustache cop.
Yeah, mustache.
It's like, hey, hold on.
Yes, mustache cop will come back up. And he's the partner of the other cop that she runs into in her son's room, because she doesn't really take in anything when she gets home. She just runs straight to her son's room, and she's like, Andy, and they hug. And then the cop that chased down Charles Lee Ray is there. His name is Mike, Detective Mike Norris, homicide.
Classic Detective Mike.
Detective Mike. And he's played by Chris Sarandon, who was in The Princess Bride and Dog Day Afternoon.
Right, he was Humperdinck. Humperdinck.
Yes, and he
and
famously played a trans woman in Dog Day Afternoon. A very, very early portrayal of a trans woman, I might add. And he did a pretty great job at it for the time period.
Oh, good.
And yeah, he's good in this. He's like New York detective. He's like, I don't like loose ends, Miss Karen Barclay.
Yeah, he's doing an accent. He's like trying an accent.
Maybe so. Yeah, I think so. But he might be a native New Yorker, for what it's worth.
Most of the dialogue is all redone in a booth as well. There's a lot of like ADR sound with a lot of it, except with Andy the kid. I feel like they mostly had to use whatever he was
what they got
doing, which worked. I mean, but I felt like the detective was overdubbed a lot.
And he and Catherine Hicks, who plays Karen, they work really well together. Obviously, she works very well with Alex Vincent, who played Andy.
Yeah, she's doing so great as a, as this panic of not knowing what's going on, and the waves of tragedy of just, cops are there at all. So her mind's racing, but finding out that her friend died it was really sad.
Detective tells her and leads her into the kitchen where there are footprints in the flour. Little tiny footprints. And so they are treating her son, Andy, as a suspect now. The detective has gone ahead and checked all of the kids' shoes, and there's no flour on any of the kids' shoes. They don't match the prints. He's suspicious, but he can't say for sure that the kid did anything. Obviously, Karen is very offended by this. She wants the detectives out of here. And so they do leave when she says she wants them out. But Detective Mike, our buddy Detective Mike, hands over the toy hammer to Mustache Cop, who I think his name is Jack in the movie.
Jack Mustache.
Yeah, we'll call him Jack Mustache. So he's like, "Are you serious?" And he's like, "It might be a murder weapon." He's like, "You're kidding me, right?" And they're going down the elevator.
Karen then has a scene with Andy, like, talk to me, what's going on? So Chucky's talking to you.
Right.
I wrote in my ghost notes this line that Andy says, "This guy is named Charles Lee Ray, and he was sent down from heaven by Daddy."
Yes.
And that really upsets the mom.
This is the first acknowledgement we get of, where's the dad in this picture.
Right.
Because
they're haunted by the ghosts of their dead dad.
Single mom story, and you get the idea that, they're not living lavish, only 2 presents for her birthday, some clothes.
That was well done.
For sure. Having to work extra hours at her job, all that stuff. And yeah, Andy tries to tell her that the doll is a serial killer, Charles Lee Ray, and that Charles Lee Ray told him that Maggie was a serious bitch and that she deserved what she got. Right. And
the kid says this.
Yeah, Karen is mortified by that and is like, obviously you're making this up. Why would you say something like that?
That's one of the scariest elements of the movie. You're the person you're close to not believing you.
Yeah,
and as a kid, your mom, it's like, it was scary.
I think we both have agreed in the past that we like it when a movie kind of hand waves past all of that disbelief. Like, we praised Poltergeist for getting into the whole family believes what's going on very quickly.
I said that it was not a boy who cried wolf story, Poltergeist, but this one definitely is for a lot longer.
For sure. But Andy had seen the flower on Chucky's shoes, so that's a key detail that only he notices, right?
Oh, he runs out of his room. He's been sent to bed, but he runs out and he tries to catch the detective Mike.
Right.
And he does successfully say, like, it was Chucky who did it, and they're angry and don't believe him.
Of course. Yeah, and so I do think that kind of thing obviously can be done well, and this is one of those examples where, like, the main fear of this movie is honestly not, like, scary doll does scary things, but it's something that is fucked up, but nobody could possibly believe you, right? Like, this doll is haunted. This murder is unexplainable in a way to people that don't believe in magic stuff, right? And the souls of serial killers invading inanimate objects. All that good stuff. How are you going to explain it?
Andy gets sent to his room and is like, Chucky, I told you that they wouldn't believe me. And Chucky even, like, plays one of the pre-programmed phrases when the mom's listening at the door, so she thinks that, the kid is really
clever.
Crazy. That was brutal.
Yeah, it was, I like to be hugged.
It seems so. The next morning, she's sending him to school, and she's like, "Everything's okay, right?" And he's kind of nodding, and it seems like he realized he can't rely on anybody and has to do this on his own. So as soon as he's let off to go to school, he leaves school, which was really frightening.
Right. Yeah, this is one of those things that's honestly so scary about, specifically the kid having no one believe him, and so turning to the last thing he should trust right now. Chucky is really successful at driving this wedge between him and everybody else for a little while. And I think that's what's really terrifying about it, especially imagining this kid just like, and he's so young, going off and playing hooky and just like walking through the city. He was riding a bus, and I was like, who let this fucking kid on this bus by himself?
The subway.
Yeah, he's on.
Yeah,
he's on an.
I felt like a kindred spirit with this kid during this subway scene. Mm-hmm. I've only been to New York in my pre-Ghost life once, and when I was on the subway, I felt like I'd, in another life, been on the subway every day of my life.
Right.
I know that. I mean, honestly, and I just relate. I just really the Charles Lee is like leading him to his next victim, which is the guy who abandoned him in the opening scene.
Right, Eddie Caputo.
The getaway driver.
Yeah.
The kid, it's like snowing New York. We didn't mention that it was in New York.
Yeah. We didn't mention that that Mike is like a New York detective, classic New York detective. But yeah, this movie is very New York. Yeah. There's a lot of shots of homeless people around and guys just hanging around on the street. Like it's 1980s New York.
Right before he left school, I made a note in my mental ghost notes. Andy was taking his Chucky doll to school. There was another kid who was walking in school that had a good guy doll.
Wow.
And I was like, that's very dystopian.
Yeah, like these things are everywhere.
This whole society, that's crazy. But anyway, yeah, he takes the subway, he's going to this place, and he separates from Chucky briefly. He says, I have to go tinkle, which I thought was the cutest. That's also how I used to refer to peeing before I became a ghost. So I was really connecting with this kid right here. And he loses Chucky, and he's like, Chucky, he's calling for Chucky, breaking my heart. I freaking love this kid, Andy. But Chucky's back to doing POV horror.
Yeah, he runs in the house, and this house is very poorly kept, Eddie's house. There's rats everywhere, and just like food left out, and cups and plates tipped over.
He's sleeping with a gun in his hand.
Yes, and Chucky wakes him up by messing with the oven. It makes some noise. Eddie gets up and he's already like paranoid. He grabs his gun and he's sneaking through his own house. He hears something and he shoots at it with his gun, and that gets Andy's attention outside. And there's a moment where he's yelling, Chucky, Chucky, and Eddie aims his gun out the window because he's surprised by the kid. And then it like takes aim at this kid, and there's a second where he's like,
really scary.
Oh my gosh, I'm not gonna shoot a kid. It's just some kid looking for somebody named Chucky.
Very tense.
It was. And what also is tense about this scene is that Chucky has turned on the gas, and Andy is very near the house. And so we know that, obviously, at some point Eddie's going to shoot the gun's going to go off, the house is going to blow up. Andy luckily walks away enough in time to not be caught up in this explosion. But yes,
but they play up, and it's very.
Mm-hmm. It's a very good explosion. They really blew that. Yeah, they really blew that shit up.
Explosion number 2,
for sure.
Oh yeah, they blow that house up majorly.
Yeah, it all fucking crashes inward, and I love real explosions.
That was cool.
Yeah, Chucky baited Eddie into getting himself blown up, and that's one of the guys he was looking to kill struck off of his list.
And we don't see the kid get picked up by the police, but the next time we see him, his mom is at the police station, and he's being interrogated, and the psychiatrist is looking in through the double glass, and it's like a nightmare.
Yeah, it cuts right to the police station, and she comes in and talks to Andy, Karen, after, she's been made aware of all this, and she's like, Andy, nobody believes you about your Chucky doll, Unless you start telling the truth right now, they're going to take you away from me. And this is where the fear of, having a kid who's mentally unstable really comes into play, right? Having a kid that's starting to believe in delusions or hear voices, right?
And that's a theme in a lot of ghost possession movies.
We've pointed it out before. And here it is again with a very young kid this time. And so everyone's really worried about this child. And in this scene, he starts punching the Chucky doll, starting to actually get really angry at the doll.
Oh my God, breaking my heart in front of all the doctors and the cops. It was just so hard to watch.
Because he goes, help me, Chucky, say something. Didn't you hear? They're going to take me away unless you say something. And he's like, why did you lie to me about everything? And he's just punching him. And so the psychiatrist on the other side of the glass is literally like,
I've seen enough.
I've seen enough. We need to let's put this kid away for a while.
Oh, it was horrible.
Yeah, so that's what
they take him to a facility for a bunch of kids, and there's some background extras later that have to be.
That's right.
Like, I don't know. It was a rough set.
Yeah, quite a few people credited here as Bellevue patients.
Oh man, yeah, Bellevue.
Apparently,
that's a name.
Yeah, that's a real place. I don't know if that's I guess that's where they went, is Bellevue. So
her kid's in Bellevue, and she questions Chucky. She's like begging him to say something. That's another one of the best scenes of the movie.
Yeah. And Chucky just gives one of the canned lines, right, the recorded dialogue, and she has a moment where she like laughs at herself, like, oh my God, this kid's starting to make me crazy. But then she goes and she checks out the box, the packaging, and she's reading, and she's like, you're friends of the end, ha ha ha. And as she's looking at it and tilting it, some big D batteries fall out of the fucking package onto the ground, and the music is like, bang, and it's like, oh my God, the other shoe just fucking dropped, man.
And she looks at the package again, and it says, batteries included.
Yeah, it's great zoom. So she looks at the doll's still sitting there, and I think that it doesn't know what's happened yet, right?
Or it's not making a move yet. It was super like a Western standoff.
That's right. Yeah, she goes up to it and opens the back pouch very carefully, sees that there's no batteries in there, and that's when Chucky twists his head around like Reagan in The Exorcist. And is like...
reference?
Possibly. I'm Chucky. Wanna play? And she drops it and screams, and it rolls under the couch.
Oh, that was so visceral, the roll under the couch.
Yeah, I really like that.
That ruined couches for me, all of a sudden, starting now.
She looks directly under the couch, and I would have, like, picked up the couch if she had the strength. That's what she should have done.
I'm so glad I don't have ankles anymore.
But somehow she does, like, look under the couch at the doll and retrieve it from under the couch without Chucky doing anything. It's seemingly still kind of like don't mess with me mode, you know?
Right.
Like, just leave me alone. I'm gonna be still.
And then she threatens to burn it?
She threatens to throw it in the fire.
Yeah.
And she says, I'm gonna make you talk. If you don't talk right now, I'm gonna throw you in the fire. And that's when Chucky starts moving his face and his mouth. And he's like, you stupid bitch, you filthy slut.
Yeah, he is.
I'll teach you to fuck with me.
Yeah.
And he bites her. He bites her on the hand, and he starts punching her with his little doll fists. And it's this is when Brad Dourif comes back in and starts voicing the doll. And so it's very, very jarring and actually funny. I think one of the reasons why, Chucky is so iconic, he's a lot like Freddy from Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, he's very vulgar in a very funny way at the same time. Like, I don't know what it is about Charles Lee Ray, the Strangler, but it seems like a misogynist, frankly.
Yeah, he's going ham on that.
He is. And it's pretty, like, just a lot of character Brad Dourif gives this doll with his voice.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most entertaining middle of the movie kind of turns I've ever seen.
Yeah, what happens after this is, after the struggle, after the doll bites her, he gets away. Like, he runs...
Scuttles out of there.
Scuttles out of the door.
And she's running, trying to catch the elevator.
He's running around the stairs trying to catch the elevator as it's going down. She gets to the bottom. Elevator's already been let out. She runs out of the building, looks right, looks left. She can't see the doll, and she's, like, screaming, like, no, in the street without a care. Who's, like the whole world just got flipped upside down for her, right? And so immediately what she does is she goes and finds Detective Mike. And she's like, Andy was right. Chucky's alive, it turns out. And
And he's like, what are you talking about? I got no idea what you're talking about.
listen, lady, lying ain't gonna save. I feel for you, huh? But lying ain't gonna save your kid. And so she's like, oh, am I lying? Look at this. And she pulls her sleeve up and she shows him the bite on her arm. That's a little thing, little moment of doubt for him. And he's like, oh, where'd you get that? But he still doesn't, no matter what she comes with, he's really not ready to believe her because this movie really, like, drills in how hard something like this truthfully would be to believe for anybody. Not only do they have to believe in ghosts, if they even get that part explained to them.
I think ghosts are much more easily more believable than this story.
This doll is coming to life and doing things. Like, it really has to be like you have to say the ghost part first, and I think that's what Andy struggles with being a 6-year-old kid.
Right.
And none of them have the information they need. Andy has obviously said that Chucky said his real name is Charles Lee Ray, but the mother doesn't have any point of reference for that. The detective does, but he doesn't find out about it until later.
Yeah, they separate. He does not go with her in her noir-style investigation.
That's right. She's like, I'm going to have to look for Chucky on my own. And he's like, hey, lady, you shouldn't be down in that part of town at this time of night. Meanwhile, I guess Andy was, like, fine walking through that part of town.
In the day.
As just in the daytime, sure, but he's like a little kid, just like...
For sure.
He walked past so many people that were just, like, looking at him like, hey, what's this kid doing here? Nobody helped him.
It was a lot like the Home Alone 2 Lost in New York.
True.
Lost in New York sequence.
I guess so.
Except people were kind of minding their own business. It felt
yes.
somehow more realistic.
I guess so. Like, certainly someone would ask this kid where his parents are, though, what he's doing outside like this. I don't know. He's so young. He's not like not like a 10-year-old. I just don't
he's
know.
extra short.
He is extra short.
Very tiny.
Yeah. And just carrying a doll around that's the same size as him almost. But, you know, she goes and looks for him. And it's honestly a great scene where she's going around asking people and they're all, you know, shaking their heads because she's looking for the peddler. She's looking for the guy that sold her the doll. And they're all shaking their heads and being like, no, I haven't seen that guy. And there's this part where she's like making a gesture in front of her teeth, like a guy with fucked up teeth. You see him?
Right, they cut the sound from a lot of it and it becomes very kind of artsy and,
for sure.
You know, like I said, in noir, some of the music was very like boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, I want to say the way that it looked at night, the movie looks pretty good overall, but the way that some of these scenes look at night is really beautiful. She kind of gets silhouetted in light and blues, and you can see her breath coming out, and there's a lot
freezing. It looks like it was shot at winter for real.
For sure. Fog in the air, and it looks really good. But eventually she finds this guy, and she asks him where he got the doll, and he's like, what'll you give me for the information? And she's got like a few dollars on her. You can take what I have, she says. And he goes, it's not enough. And she goes, I don't have anything else. And then he starts saying, oh, you don't have anything? No, you got a lot. You got a lot. And he's shoving her. And basically he attempts to rape her. Yeah. Right. And there's a lot of other, like, homeless people around him who are just kind of, like, crowding around. Yeah. Like, maybe they're going to watch.
It was the worst.
In. It was pretty rough. This is an R-rated movie, but it is R-rated for language and violence. Yeah. But this is, like, kind of maybe the scene that isn't tonally is the worst.
No, it was like, oh, I loved this movie up until this moment.
Right, maybe just one scene that could be cut, but luckily, you know, it doesn't go too far. Right, luckily for the audience.
Yeah, Detective Mike is the hero.
He gets to come in and be like, pig, and he aims his gun at all the homeless people, and they all scatter.
It's like, you gonna answer the lady's question now?
Right. Yeah, it doesn't arrest this guy or anything. Just threatens him for information a little bit. Not great police behavior either.
Did not love that.
Yeah. And I also don't know about the way this movie portrays homeless people like
Well.
some kind of violent hive mind. But in any case,
Yeah, it was of an era,
it was wild.
I suppose.
It was of an era, certainly. But he comes in, and the guy does tell her where he got the doll. He's like, I got it out of some blown-out toy store. And that's when
That's enough.
the detective starts putting things together, but he still doesn't quite believe her. And she's like, why don't you believe me? He actually does take her home, but not before giving
Yes.
her some more information. She needs to go somewhere else. So I don't know why he gives her this information. Maybe deep down, he believes her enough to do so, but she asks him why he just can't believe her, and the only thing he falls back on is because I'm sane and I'm rational. But he lets her know that this guy, Charles Lee Ray, that he tracked down and killed at a toy store.
His apartment?
Yes, that's where he leads her first. He says that he's already been there and that there's nothing there. But she's like, whatever, I've got to go check it out. And he's like, I got to go home and get some sleep. But he doesn't do that. Instead, he goes back to the office and he pulls the file on Charles Lee Ray because like he said, and like Karen reminded him, he hates loose ends. And Karen is a loose end right now. So he gets back into his car and starts driving, starts listening to music, starts smoking on a cigarette, puts his car lighter on, right?
Yeah, right before he got in the car, we're the camera and we're kind of sitting in the car and slowly he's walking up to the car. And that was like,
Yes, another POV shot.
Yeah, I was loving all that.
Of course, Chucky is in the back seat. And so our friend Detective Mike is about to get a rough awakening in the form of not believing in reanimated dolls. He's about to get that rug pulled out right from under him.
Yes.
Chucky throws some wires around his neck and starts choking him while he's driving. And we get a long sequence.
It's super long.
Of him struggling to control his car in traffic, dodging other cars on the wrong side of the road and shit. They're honking at him. Wow. And
yeah, it was pretty loud. I kind of hated it.
For sure. And just like having trouble finding the brake too. He keeps accidentally putting his foot on the go pedal, right?
And sometimes Chucky's hand is down there, even though he's still up there choking him, and he's like blocking the pedal.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of stuff going on, but like first he's choking Detective Mike, and then Detective Mike is able to grab his cigarette lighter, which he put on earlier, and he burns Chucky's face with it.
Yeah, that's his first, wound.
Mm-hmm. And
it's pretty sick.
It hurts Chucky. He lets go and he falls back there. But that's when he starts stabbing at Mike through the car seat with his Chucky knife. And so he's having to, dodge a knife coming at his back and at one point his balls. And he's, jumping up off the seat, getting his butt off of it and trying to brake. And then Chucky, does put his little tiny doll hand on the pedal and makes him go vroom. It's amazing that he gets as far as he does under these circumstances. What a driver. But
the car flips
over onto its roof and he falls out of his seat. He's lucky he didn't have his seatbelt on, or he must have taken it off,
Lucky he didn't have a seatbelt?
Well, just because, he would be trapped with Chucky in that situation.
It's an advertisement for not wearing seatbelts.
I guess so, unfortunately. The seatbelt might have saved you from the car crash, but you didn't think about the fact that there might be a doll with a serial killer's soul trapped inside of it in your back seat. You didn't think about that, did you?
It's a very catchy commercial.
That's right.
For not wearing seatbelts.
It's really rolls off the tongue, gets right in and out of there. Doesn't require too much explanation at all. So Chucky starts running around the car.
Scuttling. He
scuttles, as we said. And he starts doing some knife scraping sounds. Unfortunately, that was probably not great for you, since you are a sound sensitive ghost.
Oh, is that the segue that you're gonna? Yeah, I am. I am, Jonathan. Thank you. You know, I thought it would. I thought it would never come up, but I do usually keep track of most of the offensive sounds in horror movies, like screams.
Yeah, not a lot of eating in this one.
No,
there is a
no.
breakfast made, but not eaten.
Yeah, yeah. So breakfast fake out, but the Maggie, the her best friend who gets pushed out the window eats some cake.
She does.
But there's not a lot of eating.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 28 gunshots.
Yeah, a lot of
Pretty
gunshots.
gunshot heavy horror movie. If this was an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, I wouldn't be counting the gunshots, but I started counting and I just couldn't stop.
For sure.
Lots of high pitch like sound effect kind of notes for tension's sake. Lots meaning 5, 10, 19
I see.
high pitched squeals. Not a fan. Lots of dishes and alarm ringing. But most importantly, I had to, with my ghostly powers, turn it up and down.
Ooh.
A lot. I thought that it was
Poorly balanced.
a pretty, or at least whatever we were watching, the version. I don't know if I can blame the original mixers so much.
Well, perhaps you can.
I did do some research before on who was the sound, like the primary sound editor, and it was somebody named Clayton Collins, and they also did the sound for the movie Ghost, which is coming up.
Interesting. Yes, we will be talking.
Our docket.
Very soon we will be talking about Ghost. You can expect that around Valentine's Day.
Naturally.
How'd you like the music?
I like the credits music was a total banger, and I was like, did I hear that at any point during the movie? But so I thought the music was all pretty good. What did you think about the music?
Well, I don't think we heard the credits music during the movie, but you're right, it was kind of a banger. Yeah, I almost wish they played it more. But otherwise, yeah, I thought the music was good and generally pretty fitting, pretty well done. Nothing sticking out to me, though, Probably just that last credits theme. And I wonder if they adopt that for later movies.
Yeah. There was a lot of scuttling sound effects.
For sure, a lot of scuttling. That's going to be our new favorite word now, scuttling.
So
back to this
the car
scene.
crash was bad. Yeah, the car crash happens.
And Detective Mike has to, shoot at Chucky a bunch, and he's missing. Chucky's, faking him out on this side and that side, right? He probably almost runs out of bullets. But eventually Chucky grabs his knife that he stuck into the car seat before and kind of pops out behind the detective, and the knife makes a noise when it comes out of the cushion, and so he turns around and he's able to shoot Chucky right in the shoulder, basically, and it hurts him, and he runs away. And one thing he was saying during the scene that he kept saying was, "You can't hurt me, you can't hurt me," which was odd to me, because he actually did already get hurt at that point by the cigarette lighter, right? I'm not crazy.
Yeah, it may have. Yeah, I don't.
So why would he think that a gun wouldn't hurt him at that point? It doesn't matter that much, but little thing for me. Which is why he has a new destination to go to after he gets shot. He goes and meets someone that he talked to frequently before to get information on how to cheat death, right? But before that happens, Detective Mike goes and finds Karen at Charles Lee Ray's old apartment, and it's
oh, and what a nightmare of a place it is.
Bunch of stuff on the wall, and
paintings of him in the nude at various stages of
sacrifice and
prophesizing his putting his soul into something else.
Yeah, god worship of some kind. It's voodoo specifically that is going on here. This is
I wrote
we're doing voodoo. Whoa.
And so his next step is to go see a voodoo man.
Right, Detective Mike explains it. A man that Charles Lee Ray had spent a lot of time with, John Bishop, and he is a voodoo instructor, apparently. And one of his aliases is Dr. Death. I don't know where this information comes from.
Not from the novelization. I would have read one if there existed one.
Right, right. But he's played by Ray Oliver.
Who does a really great job.
He is.
Telling us all of the rules of how this works. It was such a hard ask.
For sure.
One, he's being asked to play a stereotypical voodoo man.
For sure.
Two, he has to exposit all of these silly rules.
Because Chucky gets to him first, and, Karen and Mike are going to see him, but Chucky gets there, and he's like, hey, you need to tell me how to get out of this body. And at first he's like, no, I'm not going to do that, because you're an abomination to nature.
Yeah.
And he also says, this is something I do appreciate. He says, you have perverted the things I have taught you and used them for evil.
Yeah,
so,
I like that too.
Even though he's, playing a very stereotypical voodoo man kind of part, I do like that the movie kind of takes a moment to be like, now, hang on, now, this guy isn't evil.
For sure, I felt so bad for him. They do a classic voodoo doll scene, and Chucky starts breaking his limbs.
Yes, he starts breaking his limbs to interrogate him on how he can get out of this body, because
it was horrible.
What he's told by John is that he is becoming more human, and that's why things can hurt him now. His bullet wound even bled, he said, when he got shot.
Which is pretty sick. A toy bleeding is a real sick thing.
Yeah, I like
sick in an awesome way.
Right.
That's so sick.
Yeah, that's dope.
Yeah, so dope.
With you.
He also says, "It's like how do I get out of this? You can only transfer into," and this was the worst rule.
Yes.
The first person you told about your situation that's going on right here.
Why would that be the case? That's the weird.
What are you?
It's just in there so that he goes after the little boy again, right?
Right.
So he goes after the little boy again. He says, "I have a date with a 6-year-old boy," which is a very weird line. And then he says,
"A classic, I'm sure."
Well, for sure. And he is a serial killer, so if you're gonna give a serial killer a weird line, that's okay. But he also says, "You have a date with death," and he kills John anyway, even though he gave them the information he wanted. Yeah. But when Karen and Mike make it to him, he is still alive enough to tell them that they need to save the kid. And so they go back home because, and another thing, Chucky tries to kill the kid at Bellevue.
Oh, yeah. He's trapped in his cell, and he's looking out the window at like this other set of staircase, and there's this really big wide shot of Chucky, scampering up these stairs, and they must have had a little person or a kid dressed as Chucky to do some of these shots.
I think so, yeah, possibly, yeah.
But the combination going back and forth between a puppet and maybe a real actor was really scary.
Yeah.
Another thing about him turning into like a real boy, like a Pinocchio type thing, the puppet changes over time.
Yes.
Like it is really scary at the beginning when it's just the good guy doll, but eventually it's this new puppet that's like...
It's very frayed and...
He's turning into a kid.
Yeah.
And his skin has become... It's not plasticky, it's more...
It's plastic
it's
and
cool.
flesh. It's something between the two. He starts looking really like degraded, and his hair is sticking up, and he looks really crazy. But what's upsetting about this Bellevue scene is that he's like screaming to the doctor, Dr. Ardmore, it says here, played by Jack Colvin. He starts screaming to him, and...
Yeah, this was the roughest part.
Yeah, being like, Chucky's coming to kill me. And he comes up to the window and he's like, but I don't see anything.
Yeah, so the kid is, starts crying, like, don't let him get me. And and it's really just an incredible performance.
Well, I wonder what they did to make that kid cry, is what I'm thinking.
Gosh.
Realistically.
I think the kid returns for the sequel, which they probably made really soon after this. I hope that the experience was well. I think, he does a lot of like Comic-Cons and is
yes.
He's celebrated.
He's got the doll with him in this IMDb photo. that I'm looking at with my
Yeah.
ghost eyes.
So I really hope the best for him. I'd like to say that he just did a fantastic job.
Hopefully so, but yeah, yeah. I'm just wary anytime a kid's in a movie, any type of movie, but especially a dark movie.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's this horrible scene where the Chucky, well, the oh my gosh, the doctor man is trying to subdue Andy and calm him down by putting, sticking him with a needle, an injection, and Chucky puts some kind of electroshock therapy headset on the doctor, and we
Yeah.
are forced to watch him get electrocuted, and Andy's forced to watch it, and it was super traumatizing.
It's the most violent part of the movie. After that, the kid gets away, and it's a lot of just chasing from location to location.
They all get back to the house.
They get to the hospital, and that leads them back to the mental hospital, back to their home, because Karen says that if Andy was ever in trouble, I told him he should go home, so he went home. And Andy did go home, and he starts putting stuff up in front of the door, but not under the knob,
Right.
noticeably.
Very sweet. Tragic.
He doesn't know how to block a door. He's a little kid. And so Chucky gets in and starts trying to get him and transfer his soul into the little boy's body. I wonder what would happen to Andy,
Oh.
Where would his soul go?
Oh.
Would it go into the doll?
All that is very interesting. As a ghost, I can't lie that the prospect of putting myself in some kind of animate object that isn't like taking over a human, which is, pretty morally deplorable. If I was in a good guy doll, I mean,
Right.
I wouldn't be a murderer serial killer.
No.
I could just sit and watch the 9 o'clock news.
It's good.
I don't know what would happen to Andy. That is worrisome.
For sure. But he gets
He knocks Andy in the head with a wooden baseball bat.
and he does start doing the chant, but Mike and Karen, they get there in time to stop him from completing it, and Karen picks him up, and he immediately goes feral again and starts biting her, punching with his little doll fists, And this is quite a long scene here at the end where they battle
Extended
the doll.
boss battle for sure.
A lot of POV shots in this scene too of them being chased by Chucky. He's going a little bit slower in these scenes because they have to keep back from the actors that are running in real life. But it's still pretty good, well shot stuff, and a lot of bullets are wasted on this doll, and the detective gets knocked out for a minute. God, they throw a lot at
light
this
him on
doll.
fire.
They do. They light him on fire.
Andy has to watch him burn, and they're just staring at him.
They think it's
Horrifying.
dead. They think it's dead after that. And then the detective wakes up, and they all, go in there, and then Karen sends the kid out for some reason or another to get something, and he notices that the doll is gone. We've been faked out. There's still one last scare, or maybe two. That's when the burned up doll busts through no, the
air
burned up
vent?
doll. No, not yet. God, it's
Not
hard
yet,
to
Jonathan.
it's hard to put it all together. This last, say, 15 minutes, it's a lot of chaos.
Mustache Cop shows up after they think they've killed it, and he's like, I'm not gonna believe anything.
Right, that's true. They've blown the doll apart at this point. Karen has, taken aim with a revolver and shot the doll's arm off. She shot the doll's leg off. She shot it a couple of times in the chest for good measure. She shot its head off, too. Its head has rolled over somewhere. And then, Mustache Cop shows up, and they try to explain this all to him. Even Mike is like, they were right, the doll came to life, it almost got all three of us. And he's like, go out there and look at it if you don't believe me, but don't touch a single piece of it. And so he goes out there, and he immediately grabs the doll's head and starts looking at it and laughing. And he brings it in, and he puts it on the dresser, and he's like, look, Mike, there's no way that this thing is alive. And he starts bouncing it like it's a little ball.
Jump scare.
Jump scare. This is when Chucky comes through the grating, the rest of his burned up body. Because I guess his head is still.
I mean, he's a ghost, I don't, it seems like he's speaking through the head and moving the body. I don't know when it stops. I don't know if it ever stops. There's 10 Chucky movies.
It's strange. What I'm seeing here is that, he needs to see the body to tell the body what to do, right? Like, he
Okay.
needs to be able to see in the room. And so I think that, like, by bringing the head in the room, the detective has let the body start trying to kill them again. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because Chucky's head is like, kill them,
Right.
and ordering his body around. It's pretty funny. And he's all burnt to a crisp at this point. He's completely melted plastic face and just one eye, one like bloodshot looking eye staring out. Really fucked looking doll, honestly. So Karen says, shoot it in the heart. And Detective Mike is able to take aim while I guess Mustache Cop is getting choked by the body, throws it off, and it's at the wall now, trying to stand up, and Mike perfectly takes aim and shoots it, and a big blood spatter comes out of the doll on the wall behind it to let you know he got the heart this time.
Sick.
Falling over in slow motion. It's really good. It's over for now. They've
Right, they're all walking out.
yeah, they've done it. They've saved the kid. Detective Mike is like, "You believe me now?" And Jack Mustache goes, "Yeah, but who's gonna believe me?"
Yeah.
So they can't.
Classic.
They have to lie. They can't tell anybody.
And they're all leaving.
And the movie just kind of stops as the kid keeps looking back at the doll.
Yeah.
Right. See if it really is dead, because he's been faked out like 3 times now.
And we're anticipating one more fake out. And so is Andy.
I know, but the door is closing, and right before the door closes, you can just see Danny's face through the bit of door that's left open. It freeze frames, and some spooky music
like,
plays,
oh.
and then the credits start to roll.
I couldn't believe the freeze frame.
It was honestly a cool way to end the movie.
Yeah,
I
loved it.
Just on, is it gonna get back up?
And I love that Andy's the one that's, onto it. That's like he
was the one
not
who was
over yet.
Onto it the whole time. He's the smartest one in the movie because, like, these movies are always like, oh, a kid knows better than adult in these situations because they believe in scary things, and so they're more willing to accept them, That's always kind of the line that they take. But I really like Child's Play. I think that it's possible we will get more enjoyment out of the sequels when we get to them. Yeah. This one is a little bit dry in places, maybe, in that it's the first one. What do you think of that?
Well, one of my favorite fun facts and elements of this movie is that it's a behind-the-scenes love story between Karen, the main actress, Catherine Hicks, and the main puppeteer named Kevin Yeager.
They fell in love?
They are still married today.
That's adorable. Wow.
And, any fears that this movie has, to imagine that she actively fell in love on this set, like, we were worried for the kid. Like, hopefully the kid had a good on-set experience.
I think he probably did.
But if love was in the air...
Yeah, it was probably okay.
That's wonderful. This Kevin guy also did special effects on the Nightmare on Elm Street
very cool
movies, and I noted 3 of them. They were Face Off, Dana Carvey's Master of Disguise, and Mission Impossible 2.
Oh,
all
that
movies
one.
That if you want to be wearing a face and then take a face off,
that's right.
He's your guy.
Oh, they should have got him for Face Off.
They got him for Face Off. That's what I just said.
Oh, my bad.
He was the Face Off guy.
I missed that one.
No, it's okay. There was a lot going on.
Yeah,
but I love a love story. Yeah. I learned that after the first time I saw the movie, and that always makes me very happy.
That's really cool. Well, yeah, I think it was mostly a hit. I don't know if I'd recommend it to every horror fan, but I certainly think anybody who's a fan or interested at least in the idea of Chucky should watch it. And if you remember Slappy from Goosebumps, try it out.
Yeah. Is Slappy a ghost?
I don't know. I don't recall, honestly.
Possessed? Yeah.
I don't recall. Don Mancini, he's the one who came up with the idea for this franchise and pretty much known for just being involved with this franchise. So Child's Play, Chucky, that's Don Mancini's thing. And the person who directed this movie, who I think I've complimented pretty fairly throughout this episode, is Spider-Man, apparently. Tom Holland.
Very young.
He was not even born yet. It's amazing. No, different Tom Holland, obviously, but he's responsible for directing other horror movies such as Psycho 2, or I think he wrote Psycho 2, and he directed this, of course, and he directed The Langoliers, and probably another Stephen King movie. He's a horror guy. We're going to run into him again, so that's cool. Vernon?
Yes.
Are there any cool dates for this flick?
Oh, you're referring to our section on famous dates? Yeah, for sure. This movie came out November 9th, 1988, and it takes place, the story takes place on November 9th. That's the day that Charles Lee died.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then Child's Play 2 came out 2 years later in 1990 on November 9th as well.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
There is one shared birthday. Don Mancini, who you mentioned, the creator of the character Chucky, was born on January 25th, which is coming up. Can we make it? He shares a birthday with Maggie, Karen's best friend. The actress is named Dina Manoff. They were both born on January 25th.
Oh, well, that's cool.
Happy birthday, maybe.
Yeah. We'll make it.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Well,
Pretty famous dates.
that's awesome. I had a great time. I'm excited to get to the sequel at some point, maybe sooner rather than later, because I really like it, and I really like Brad Dourif, and I'm sure that the sequels are, crazier, wackier. This one's a very good first film in a series, very solid, but I'm excited to see where it goes. Even if it jumps off the rails, flies over the shark a little bit, I'm excited.
I want to be on that train passing over the sharks.
I know, yeah. I want to see where this ghost goes next.
Ghost.
Probably into another doll.
Yeah, an identical doll, probably.
Well, I want to say, for anybody who's made it this far into our first episode of the new year, episode 7, you, if you have made it this far, are a true believer. And please recommend our podcast to someone you know, someone you love, someone who is not a believer. Let them know you've got their ghost evidence right here. We don't need all these ghost hunters out there. Look, we're trying to be found. We're making a podcast. You gotta like, you gotta subscribe, and you gotta comment in them comments, all right? Just so that we can get the truth out there, because that's what it's all really about.
Wow, that was beautiful, Jonathan.
Thank you. And with all that being said, am I the one taking us out of here this time?
No,
You're the one taking us out of here. All right.
All right, everyone. Peace and love.
Peace and love, everybody.
Okie dokie.
Child's Play is good. Child's Play is good. We had fun. That was a good episode.